Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Aloysius Petersen. I'm the managing director at Phoenix Corporate Events. We host the Customer Service Symposium, brand which consists out of the on-site event, which happens twice a year. We have the online magazine called Symposium Mites, and then we host our webinar, which happens once every month, as well as my podcast, Customer Service with Aloysius X Peterson. I don't know why they made me call myself X Peterson, but nonetheless, today I have phenomenal speakers. I would like to welcome them on behalf of my colleagues, my staff, my peers, and the broader global market. Steve Towers is a phenomenal gentleman. He'll be the host today. And then he will introduce all his colleagues and they'll be speaking about a topic which I know is very close to everybody's hearts in business. Steve Towers, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks very much, Aloysius. That's great, and very pleased to be with you today to give some people an idea of where I am at the moment. I'm actually in the UK at the moment, but I spent my time traveling between Colorado and the UK. I've got the good fortune to have a fantastic panel today, so we're going to dig into their expertise and their experience, talking about a whole range of topics, which is focused around this idea, the value of events. So we'll be doing that as well. Just a bit of background on me before we do the broader introductions. I've been doing this stuff for the best part of 50 years now, so I've been around the houses a few times. I'm very fortunate to be retained by some of the world's greatest CX companies. And what we do as far as the BP group is concerned is listen to what those people are doing, and if the techniques have got merit, incorporate them into something we call the customer experience management method, which has been growing since 2006 and it's now in version 15. And in that way, through our partner network, and we have several partners in South Africa, through our partner network, we can distill that knowledge and that learning into the broader community so people can get real value from it. But that's a little bit about me. I'll be doing the overseeing, if you like, and introducing the topics. I think as we've already got Bianca's on the call, and she'll be collating questions from the floor, so there'll be plenty of opportunity based on what some of the panelists are saying to be able to put forward your questions, and we'll get them into the pipeline. We're going to take about some 50, 60 minutes. Okay, so the first part of it is going to be some staged questions that I've got. And then, as I say, what we'll do is we'll hand it over to the floor and see what questions arise and take those accordingly. So with that in mind, I want to let the panel introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Lynn, because she's on my screen. So Lynn, over to you. If you'd like to give us a little bit of background, please.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, everybody. Good morning. My name is Lynn Baker. I live halfway between Dubai and South Africa, and I've been a customer experience consultant for probably 25, 30 years. Like I say to my clients, I was in customer service probably along with Steve Towers, or when it was still service back in the days. I studied service with Disney at the beginning of 2003 and brought that service strategy back to Monte Cassino, where it eventually evolved into a customer experience strategy where we looked at mind and mood management and various other things. So yes, I've been in it a while. And what I'm doing now, I've recently returned to South Africa to bring the first South Africa Customer Experience Awards to South Africa. And I'm very excited about it. And thank you so much for having me on the webinar. And I certainly hope that my knowledge and my experience can add value to those who are listening.
Thanks, Lynn. Nadia, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. So, everybody, and thank you so much for having me on this webinar. I actually represent Vumatel, who's an infrastructure provider. Part of our job, and I think our purpose as Vuma, is to enable and to ensure that everybody in South Africa has an abundance to internet and the Wi-Fi activities. We are one of the founders of actually Fiber to the Home, and it is one of our companies that actually started that in South Africa. From my side, in terms of service, I've always been in the customer service environment. 8 years ago, I leaped into experience and experience management. And as a result, I've gotten to this point. Very, very happy to be, and thank you so much for having me on this.
Thanks, Nadia. You're very welcome. We want to dig into some of your background and expertise in terms of the questions we're going to ask in a few minutes. So we'll be doing that. And last but not least, on the expert panel, Dave, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi everyone. Based on those introductions, I feel severely underqualified to be here. Some very big names on this call, but so my name is Dave, not David. Only my mother calls me David. And I like introducing myself by explaining the 3 different career paths I've had. I've been a lawyer, I've been a pastor, and I've been the head of a contact center. And all 3 sound very different, but all 3 boil down to good CX. So I find myself in a position now, head of customer success for a company that specializes in just that. Happy to be here, happy to contribute, and excited for the next couple of minutes.
Okay, thanks, Dave. That's great, and quite a diverse background there. But I think you knitted it together well in terms of saying it is all CX. That's what the really great companies know, is that everything leads back to the customer, because they're the cause of all our work eventually. So whether it's a client, a citizen, a church member, whatever it is, we're in it for the service and the delivery of it. I'd just like to say thank you to Aloysius and his team for actually putting this format together, and then indeed perhaps start off with the theme, which is the value of events, particularly business-to-business events, and attending them. So I'm actually going to pick on Aloysius to answer the first question, which is, for somebody like yourself who's organizing events, give us your value proposition in terms of, why people should attend any CX customer service event, and not just CX, but the broader scheme of things, other business disciplines. What's the real value of going to those events?
Thank you, Stephen, and thanks for the first question. That was surprising. Nonetheless, in my opinion, I've been around the publications and events, or business-to-business events, for between 15 and 20 years. I'm not as blessed to have been around that long. I'm still very young. And what I've learned is, I'll use myself as an example to give a very short answer. I was a salesperson. I was a normal sales rep, and all I done was call guys, offer them the opportunity to sponsor, give them the deliverables of the sponsorship, showcase the ROI of that, and they would either say yes or no and attend the event. And that was the way I started. It's many years later now, and I found that what those events done to me was it gave me an interest where I wanted to learn more about, for example, CX today. I wanted to know more about business holistically. I wanted to understand what it is that I could do outside of being, in those days, a brilliant salesperson, but what I could give back to the individuals I met doing 4, 5 to 6 events a year. You met lots of different people. Everybody I met by virtue of events, which has given me an intellect into understanding about what is my personal purpose. And in my opinion, any event, whether it be a CX event, whether it be an awards, whether it be a workshop, whether it be a cybersecurity event, it really does give the individual the opportunity to learn. Because you learn from individuals you would either just see on LinkedIn or have the opportunity to speak to, by the way, if you're lucky. But in-person events give you the opportunity to get them into a network, to learn from them, as well as also them broadening your own horizons from a skills perspective. So for me, event companies are custodians of the individual sectors of business. In this case, obviously, we're speaking about CX. So I'm hoping that we all get to the point of understanding that events are not just a money spent. It is really a money spent on education, not only for the now, not only for your organization, but for your own personal future. And that is what I believe events to be, or has given me as an individual, Steve.
No, thanks for that, Aloysius. I mean, from the point of view of events generally, and how they've changed over time and morphed, is from a community perspective, the events I enjoy participating in the most, the ones which are not just talking heads and it's the usual suspects. It's getting fresh people in there who've got different ideas who can share them and talk about the programs they're running, warts and all. Sometimes is to actually be able to share, and you go, oh yeah, I've not looked at it like that before. So I think there's a great value what you and your team are actually doing, particularly in South Africa. Lynn, would you like to give your view on the value of events generally?
Well, Steve, I think I have a very similar view, but I've spent many years and many dollars on attending business events because I found it of such value. And it's really interesting. I use acronyms in my life. There's always ABCs or something like that to make me realize value or to make me remember something, because humans remember in threes. And whenever I'm looking at attending an event, I always look at my ABCs, and my ABCs are really around, is it applicable? Is the content applicable and appropriate to what I'm doing? Will I grow from the content? And the biggest thing around it being appropriate is, when I learn this content, can I take it into the business the next day and apply it and see results? I don't want to spend my time, my money, or my resources, and I don't think anybody else does, going on academic courses that really just give you theory and overview. And I think that's, with due respect, Steve, the value of the courses that you offer is the practicality around them. What you're learning, you can take the next day and you can apply it in the workplace. So I think, the ABCs is, how appropriate is the content and how can you apply it the next day? The next one would be really, does it build my network? And, and does it build my profile? Am I going to meet the right people there? Because it doesn't matter what business you're in. And yes, I've been in corporates and I've been in consulting and various others. And I remember many years ago, I was talking to my mother, and my mother at 92 said, you know what, Lynn, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I said, Mum, that applied 50 years ago. Today, it's not about, what you know and who you know, it's who knows you. So a big part of going to these events and engaging in these events is people seeing you there. And the C is the credibility. How does that networking, how do those people, and how does the accreditation, whatever that accreditation may be, how does that then add to your profile and your credibility within the industry? And quite honestly, in the beginning, like everybody, I was, running around wondering what to do. And I put my ABC down and went, is it appropriate? Can I use it the next day? Is it building my network? And I think that's so important. Is it building my network and introducing me to people who can challenge me and teach me more? And is it building my credibility in terms of my profile? So maybe that's a simplistic view of the way I've looked at attending events. And what I do is I attend events based on that. And then when I come back, I go, did it achieve those objectives? And with all due respect, if they don't, then they go off and I won't do it again. So I think that's my ABC, and that would be my advice to anybody else who's looking at, engaging in business events.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, that, Lynn, in terms of the ability to actually go to an event and then come back with some really solid learnings that you can put into place straight away. And I think if I had a criticism of some conferences that I've attended myself, is that the way the conferences are set up is really just as a sales pitch for whoever the vendors are at the conference. And that you just get so turned off by that whole, veiled sales pitch. And where I derive value, and where you said it as well, Lynn, is what are the learning points I want to get from this? And can I genuinely take them away, and then put them into practice? And as I've said, being able to then, for ourselves, codify those best practices and make them accessible to other people. So they're not just a theoretical academic framework. There's something that works out there. People are doing this, and thereby, by the practicality of it, it lets us all get access to it as well in a real meaningful way. So thanks for that, Lynn. I'm going to pick on you now, Nadia, because of course you hold the purse strings for letting some of your folks go to events, right? So what's your perspective on the value of events?
So exactly to what yourself and Lynn has also said is, in terms of the learning and the development, I think that's the most important thing for me. The takeaway is taking the information, coming back to business as say, and being able to put these learnings into practice. The other thing that I really love about it is the ability to network, and not necessarily network to build a network, but to network just in general, to learn from people, to find innovations that people have, and to actually learn from credible people that have done this before. So for me, it's actually quite important to be part of and to go to workshops and events and webinars, because at the end of the day, you are as good as what you know, right? So I think from that perspective, it's learning, developing, and then also ensuring that others learn through that. So as you say, I do hold a bit of purse strings, and I'm definitely getting my team into the next ones.
Good, excellent. Thanks for that, Nadia. And Dave, I know you've had a varied background, as you've already said. In terms of the overall value of events, I know with some of the clients that you guys have got, you get exposure to different ways of doing things and different disciplines and that type of thing. So over to you, Dave. What's your take on events?
Yeah, I guess my two favorite parts of these events would be the food and the swag. If I have to be very honest about it.
I'm with you on that one. I'll add that to my ABC.
Go very well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of so Lynn, Nadia, I enjoyed your answers about the value it adds. I'm not being funny. The food does make an event good, and so does cool swag. But it's what that represents, right? So when you go to something where a whole bunch of people are gathered, any meeting, what ties it together is a meal. Like it's the craziest thing. So I say that it's the food because I think lunchtime is when you tend to make the most connections, because people are already distracted, and sort of their nervous tension disappears because they're shoving food into their mouth. So love that part of it. I must be honest, I've been on the event circuit for about 4 years now, and in the legal industry it wasn't a thing. It's very segmented, and events onto thing. You go and do what you need to do, and you get paid for it. It's almost the same in ministry. Then when I entered this world of customer experience, which it later turned into, I was invited to replace one of our directors to speak at an event because she couldn't make it. And I said, yeah, why not? I can speak, I can do stuff. Just tell me what to do, and I'll give it my best shot. And they invited me, and I saw the type of event that it was, and then I saw the cost. There was no cost for me as a speaker, but I saw what they charged other people to get in, and I was blown away. It was thousands of rands, and I didn't understand that. It was the weirdest thing for me. How can something be so expensive? What are we each getting? Are we getting an iPhone to take away, or what's happening here? After the event, looking back, it's worth every single cent, right? So it's not only the people you meet, but it's the things you learn from people who've already made the mistakes. There's no need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to CX. People are out there and have made mistakes, and you can learn from them. And to be honest, the thing that blew me away from attending an event, or most of the events I've gone to actually, is the willingness to give away knowledge that has been earned, right? For technically for free. I mean, the speakers, some get paid and some don't, but it's irrelevant. They're so willing to just give it away, and it's out there, and everyone can learn from what everyone else has either succeeded at or miserably failed at. That would be my take on
I think that the latter perspective of yours there, Dave, is really valuable as well. Is all too often there's the feeling that if you get invited to an event, you just want to tell the good side of it, the sunny story. But the greatest learnings occur when people sort of said, no, if I was to do this again, I wouldn't do this. And it'd be precisely what somebody in that community is just about to do. And that's of great value, is being able to explain the whys and wherefores, and we, what is it? Google's fail fast, learn from other people who are in a similar sort of situation. Also that price point as well, Dave, and the note on swag and food. I think I'm with you on that. My criteria for choosing the conference is, what's the lunch going to be like? And is it going to be is it free wine or something like that? No, it isn't. But again,
Is there a party?
We shouldn't underestimate it's what happens. I think it was Rum Labrace who were talking about process, and they said it's what happens between the boxes that counts. Yeah. And I think at conferences particularly, what happens in between the sessions, you know, and the opportunity to go and grab a coffee and talk to some of the people who are in the session as well. That networking capacity, we shouldn't undervalue it. Sometimes I've been to events, I'm sure we've all had this as well, is where you feel as though you're being shuffled from one room to the next and you don't get a chance to breathe or collect your thoughts. So having those spaces where you can sort of just step out for 10 or 15 minutes and have a discussion with your colleagues, I think that is so valuable as well. But food and swag, so Aloysius, you've got to put that on your agenda very high for Dave to want to participate, not only as a speaker, but as a community member as well. Good.
I have Bianca, and I think Nadia and Dave's been to our events. I think food is something that we actually focus on a bit too much. So I don't want to be unbiased because we're speaking about the topic, and I don't want to throw my brand in front. I want to throw the community in front, Steve. So yes, I do have the Customer Service Symposium. Lynn does have the South African Customer Experience Awards, but we're not trying to say just come to ours. We're trying to show the value of what these things give to the specific delegates. So I'm going to walk away and sit back and listen to you guys and not be biased.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that, Aloysius. We've got a couple of questions coming in from the floor now. So do, you know, if you're on the call, put the questions in the chat room and we'll collate them for you. What I want to do now is just move away from the generality of the value of events. And I'm going to pick on you, Lynn, so forewarned is forearmed. Having had the experiences that you've had and working closely in the launch of the South Africa awards process, how has that worked around the world, and what's the interest, do you feel, in South Africa now to be able to sort of step up and participate in those things?
You know what, Steve, I think it's really interesting. I'm not sure that anybody would know, but I've judged in the the International Customer Experience Awards for 6 years, and I've done the Dubai Customer Experience Awards for, I think, 4 years. And what's really interesting, you know, Dave talks about the cost and the value. And we all know we're living in a cost value revolution. You know, people say they don't have money, but they'll find money if you can give them the value. And, you know, the judging over the last 6 years has been an incredible opportunity for me. And what's really happened is that I've attended events, and believe me, I've been to Disney 2 or 3 times. I've traveled there, I've stayed there, I've done all the Disney events, I've done Dubai events, I've done events all over the world. And all of them have contributed to who I am. However, in terms of taking the next step, in terms of staying in line with the current trends around customer experience, which I needed to do as a consultant, once I had done the ACX and various others, and I had the platform and the frameworks, I then needed to stay on top of the trends, which is why I judged. And it's been a very interesting process because, you know, you go to people in South Africa and say, listen, you can come and judge, but we're going to charge you. And people go, what? No, you want me to judge, you pay me. Okay. And what I found 6 years ago is I went through exactly the same thing. Like, you want me to judge, you pay me. Anyway, I went and decided, no, you know, if I'm going to learn from the best in the world, you know, a few grand a year isn't a bad idea. And that's what I decided to do, is that every year my investment in myself in terms of my education has been in the judging. And it's been hugely surprising for me from the point of view that how can I spend 8,000 or 10,000 rand and the best people in the world stand and tell me how they do customer experience? You know, using the frameworks and everything we all know, how have they put strategy together, how they implemented it, what their return on investment is, what their outcomes have been. And it's just phenomenal for me that people stand in front of me and tell me how they do it. They tell me what the latest trends are, whether it's in technology or whether it's in customer-centric culture, employee experience. So that's been my way of keeping up to date in terms of trends, because I think a big challenge at the moment in terms of customer experience is that we all often feel we're getting left behind because there's just so much happening every day. And it's become such a huge subject. So, from the judging perspective, I think it's a different level. I think that we need to go to business events in order to learn our frameworks. We need to learn how to put strategies together. Once we sort of do that, then how do we keep on top of the game? And the judging for me has done that. And I have learned from the most incredible people in the world. I've built the most incredible network in the world. And, just to give you some example, so last year I was so privileged. I was chair of judges for the International Customer Experience Leader of the Year Award, which I've done for a couple of years, and I've had the privilege of meeting incredible people, and I'm humbled every time I have the privilege of meeting them. But I had the head of Dubai Police presenting to me on how Dubai have taken their customer happiness strategy, incorporated it into their customer experience strategy in Dubai Police, how they've then implemented that over 25 to 30,000 staff, and what their outcomes have been, all based on a customer experience strategy.
Wow.
And I just, I sit there and I go, this is the privilege. When he started talking to me about taking customer experience and putting it into the metaverse, I went blank, got lost, and was like, okay, we need to have dinner because you need to explain to me how we're going to take customer experience into the metaverse, how blockchain is so yesterday for Dubai Police. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of trends. A lot of people are still looking at, manual surveys. They're still looking at NPS scores. They're still looking at things when, quite honestly, we need to be looking at trends. And you look at someone like Dubai Police, who's, as I say, they're going, blockchain is yesterday, and in the next 5 years, the whole of Dubai Police will be in the metaverse. I don't even, I had to go and research the metaverse to find out, firstly, what it was, how I could participate in it, and then still working out how we put it into a customer experience context.
Yeah,
so
and we apply that stuff, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think there are different levels of attending, and what are the benefits of engaging in business events. That's my experience. I've done a lot of courses. I've enjoyed every single one. I think every single event I've attended in some way has contributed to who I am and the overall knowledge that I've got. My job now, as a granny in the industry, someone called me a legend the other day. I think I'm more of a granny in the industry. Well, as they say in South Africa, a gogo. I'm a gogo in the industry. I think part of my job with a lot of my clients is still to say, this is where you need to be. This is where the best in the world are. Where are we? What are the trends? And where is that gap analysis? So, and I think that, attending these kind of things really gives you that rounded knowledge and information. So I'm sorry if that was a bit of a long story, but I think, it just goes to prove that there are different ways of investing in yourself. And whether you're attending business events, you've got to see it as an investment in your knowledge, an investment in your career, and an investment in your profile. That's what it is.
Thanks for that, Lynn. I want to ask another related question, given your backdrop is the South African Customer Experience Awards event, and it's going to be the first one. So how do people engage in that forum, that format? How do they reach out to you if they want to become a judge, or alternatively actually want to be a participant in the awards cycle? How does that work?
Steve, very simple. We've tried to make the journey as simple as possible. And really, you just go onto www.sacxa.co.za, which is our acronym for South Africa Customer Experience Awards. If the people need to know, it is the only, accredited version, the official edition of the International Customer Experience Awards by Awards International. So we're part of the US Customer Experience Awards, UK Customer Experience Awards, the recently launched Saudi Customer Experience Awards. So it's very simple. Go onto the website. You can enter into it and say, this is the best customer experience strategy that we've got, or the best customer-centric culture. We've got 4 different categories, which is, CX Spotlight, CX Classics. We have actually 16 categories. So I would encourage people just to go on the website and have a look, and really give me a call. My number's out there. And I honestly see this year as an education process because we've never really had awards to this degree in South Africa before. And I know a lot of people are not quite understanding how it works. The website is designed to try and give them as much information as possible around how do you enter, why do you enter, and also being a judge. Having said that, being a judge, you have to go through a review process. I think the biggest thing that I'm tasked with Awards International is governance. And in terms of the level of information that we're putting into awards, but really judges. Unless our judges are qualified, they've got 10 years experience and various other things, unfortunately, they don't get in. But that's really what it's about. You know, we're judging the best of the best in South Africa, and just go onto the awards website. But thank you for asking. I appreciate that. I didn't come on here to promote the South Africa Customer Experience Awards. Really, I didn't. But, you know, when people say, why am I doing it? Why did I bring the awards to South Africa? Because with all due respect, it's not cheap. It's not easy. They charge me in pounds, okay, at 25 to 1. But it was really interesting because I was talking to Awards International in 2019 about bringing the awards to South Africa. And I remember saying to the CEO, Neil, Neil, I don't think South Africa is ready. And then after COVID, I emigrated to Dubai and I've come back. And in December last year, I said to him, you know what? South Africa in the last 4 years has been on this exponential growth line in customer experience. It has gone so far in the last 3 to 4 years that I honestly believe that the time is right for us to start acknowledging companies who are investing in customer experience, recognizing them and celebrating them. And having been in Dubai, and I had this conversation with somebody in Dubai yesterday, that I honestly believe that South Africa has overtaken Dubai in terms of the resources and the input and the effort in their customer experience in their companies over and above Dubai in the last couple of years. They've blown me away exponentially. We are so ready to recognize companies like, Vuma and various others have done incredible work in this area. And we need to recognize and celebrate them. And at the end of all of this, there's a big party. So, Dave, I've got a big party on the 31st of October in Joburg. Okay. So that's a customer experience award, and a great food and great alcohol. So, you know what? I fulfill your objective.
So we'll all be there for that. The swag and the food, that's got me straight away. I'll be there.
I'm going to put that in the invitation, the swag and the food of the CX industry. So, yeah, I don't want it to be an advert, but yes, there's a lot of interest around it at the moment. Why, how, when. My number's available to anyone. They can give me a call. The website's there. But thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No, thanks for sharing that information. I just go on to say as well, to completely underline what you've said, is that generally in South Africa, people are extremely modest about what they've done and where they've done it. And if I've said it once, I've said it a million times, is look, guys, in many ways, and certainly the companies I'm working with in South Africa, in many ways, you're leaps and bounds ahead of other places. So, this introspection thing is, but we're not good enough yet, are we? And so, no, you're leading the way. You're creating the dialogue around the rest of the planet. And so when we talk about, as I said, the CEM method, and we're embedding approaches in there, many of those approaches have developed over the last few years and have now been integrated into the method, so the rest of the world can get access to them. So we shouldn't be, from a South African perspective, you shouldn't be hiding your light under a bushel. You should be out there sharing it. So I'm now going to pick on Nadia and sort of say, okay, Nadia, in terms of, you're at the sort of sharp end of the stick, as it were, in terms of having to demonstrate results from CX. So when you're thinking of that in the context of things like awards, the sort of events that Aloysius' team are putting on and things like that, what informs your choice about which ones you're going to go to?
So I think importantly, what informs my choice is the fact that it does actually speak to, and you say South African, specifically around the narrative of where we have been as a country and where we have come to. And I think that's the most important thing, as Lynn has said, is that we are in leaps and bounds away from many countries that have leaped prior, our first world countries, have had access to XM strategies and information and culture and diversification. But South Africa as a whole, and in terms of being one of the companies that actually pioneered fiber here, I think it's important to actually understand that we do think about South Africa as a brand out there. We do continue to punt South Africa as a brand out there. And from an XM perspective, we have come leaps and bounds. I mean, the South African SA as well as a platform to work through them, and as a platform to have information and knowledge shared through those webinars that they have every week, ongoing conversations and mentorship. I think it's extremely important that we do actually understand where we are as a country, where CX is in our country, and how we can get on this bus.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nadia. And I think how do we get on this bus? You know, how do we learn from the best, but not repeat the mistakes of the other people who've gone before? I think that is very valuable. So generally, from an events perspective, you know, I emphasised earlier on that networking thing, and I know from your perspective, Dave, you not just from working in South Africa, you work all over the world effectively. So what's your take on the progress South Africa's making in terms of events like the awards thing, Aloysius's thing? You know, what would you encourage other event organisers potentially to be thinking about?
So look, when we're talking from a South African context, I like looking at the whole continent of Africa. I see us as, you know, being a big part of the African movement towards CX. And what I've noticed when dealing with you know, either countries in Africa or clients who are in Africa or clients who are outside of Africa, is that every single African client I have tend to just blow it out of the water. You know, they knock it out the park in terms of innovation. Because I think, you know, as a continent, we are well known as under-resourced, and that becomes the motivator for us to do as much as we can with very little. And that's what South Africa is good at, particularly, but again, Africa as a continent. And it's because we've had to, you know, because of digital revolution, digital transformation, we've had to focus on things that don't cost much and have a massive impact. And what has happened from a South African context over the past couple of years is that we've recognized CX as no longer being something we have to do in terms of, we call it a cost center. It's not something you have to do because you have to make it as easy as possible for the customer to get from A to Y. You know, that's, you know, if we don't, we're going to be worse than our competitor. That costs money, so we'll put money in and have a little kitty over here and we'll just let it run on the side. It's turned from this cost center into a profit-generating side of our business. So all of a sudden, South Africa has realized that CX is going to be what affects your bottom line the most. And people like accountants, for example, don't. I'm not picking on the accountants out there, but they're like, you know, profits and expenditure, and then you get like a number that is either positive or negative. And CX isn't that. It's this whole other beast that we need to incorporate and figure out how exactly it affects our bottom line and understand. And this is what we are doing now more. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And understand that it is something that is absolutely going to affect our bottom line. But the challenge, which I don't think we've unlocked, is how to accurately link CX into some sort of an accurate, I need the right word here, quantitative data set. So that's the part that we haven't necessarily got right, I think, because it is seen as...
I would disagree with you, but I won't do it on this seminar.
Well, that's fine. Look,
got there. There are the tools to do it. We have got there.
They definitely are.
Measurements and ROI are key.
I think the point is that it's less accounting than we understood in the past. It's a more holistic look at, is CX adding towards our bottom line, in what way and how much. It's not just here's what we spent, here's what we made, here's the difference anymore. And understanding that, I think, is part of the battle, in my opinion. But South Africa is I think we're getting there. We've taken leaps and bounds, but that's exactly why we need things like events, because without them, the progress will be slow. It'll all be theory based. It'll all be more luck than than actual investiture in what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think that's what you said, Dave, is of great value, because, of course, when you're looking for the advocates of CX, it's a very broad spectrum of people. And I think if CX had a failing in the past was that it was regarded as being soft and fluffy. It's a nice to have, and it's one of the early victims of when people are downsizing or recession hits or anything like that. It's one of the, you hear about these CX units, and I was at a conference last year where somebody was saying 50% of the people in CX were gone. And I disagreed, because what I said was, look, if the CX is focused on delivering, shareholder value in whatever form you want to talk about that, for profit, not profit, citizens' rights and things like that. If CX is focused on improving shareholder value, and as Lynn was indicating, there are some really concrete ways of measuring that now, which weren't there 10 years ago, but they are now, it's not only going to survive, it's going to thrive and lead the way for organizational transformation. And I see that very much as will be coming through the events over the next few months, is how can we learn those people who've already, broken the ground on that and established, look, CX is the key component of our strategy. Without it, we're not going to survive in the future. So I think that what you were saying there, Dave, was quite valuable from the point of view of let's find a broad range of metrics that CX is acting upon, and then let's encourage others to adopt those as well. So Nadia, how do you go about in terms of justifying attendance at events? And I know I've asked that question a different way earlier on, but what I want to do is sort of say, if you were nominating people to go, what do you task them with coming back with that is going to be of value to you and your organization?
So I think it's not really the test. It's actually the person that comes back and the individual that does actually attend. It's the knowledge that they bring back into the organization. It's the fact that somebody has grown to be a better person and have better understanding of what they could do. But it's also very important in terms of innovation and the thinking along how they could actually start working through things and understanding what is happening in our organizations and using the innovative thinking of what's out there. As you said, people have done it, people have been around the mill. And the people that I select, or the people that are selected to go on these events, it's very important that they do actually come back with the innovation, come back with the networks as well as the mentorship to be able to pass it on to others and to start working through this as an organization. So CX is obviously not just one part of a organization. It's not like customer service used to be. It is the entire organization. And it's important that every single person that goes on these events or are selected to go on these events come back into the organization and start, sowing those seeds and making sure people grow from them and learn.
Yeah, and again, that's those different perspectives. We've all got different personalities that we work with, and some people will come back with one thing and others with others. So I always say to people, look, if you've got an opportunity, don't just send one person, send a couple of people, and let them, those people who might have opposite opinions of how you approach work and how you consolidate and things like that. So you do get that, diversity of viewpoint brought back, and then you can contribute straight away with it. So thanks for that, Nadia. We had a couple of questions coming in. I'm just going to look towards the questions because we've got like 15 minutes tops left. And Mohammed Jamal was asking the question about what's the best format for events. So who would like to take that one on, and what's the best format? I'm not going to ask you directly, Aloysius. I'll come to you in a moment or two, because you can tell us a little bit about, the customer service symposium and how that's formulated, why it's formulated in that way. Perhaps pick on you again, Lynn.
I'm going to take that one on, Steve. Having had a background as a professional keynote speaker for the last 20 years, I think at least 15 years ago, what I realized is that, with all due respect, traditional speakers, keynote speakers like myself, who stand up with a PowerPoint presentation and what I call data dump information onto my poor delegates who have paid a fortune to be there and bore the living daylights out of them. As much as I try to be a really exciting speaker, an approachable speaker, an engaging speaker, speakers, with all due respect, unless they engage their audience in a physical way, are becoming irrelevant. And it was really interesting. I had a long conversation with my agent about this, who didn't quite agree with me. But do you know what? We're dealing with a generation now who've got on average 9-second attention span. And the speakers were asked to stand up for 45 minutes, hold their attention with a PowerPoint presentation, a couple of videos. And, quite honestly, that's such archaic thinking. And, speakers wonder why, when they look down, their audience are on their cell phones looking at Instagram and TikTok and everything else. Well, because we're in the age of, the attention economy. We're trying to get people's attention. And, for 45 minutes, we're not going to keep it. It's not possible anymore. So, what I did is I went from being a keynote speaker who stood on stage and talked about how do we move beyond service to drive experience for many years. And I remember I was at an event one day, and at the end, they all stood up and they clapped, and off I went. And I was on my way to the airport, and as usual, I talked to myself. I'm not quite sure whether that's normal, but I have very interesting conversations with myself, and particularly after keynotes, in terms of what did I get right? What did I get wrong? How could I have done that better? And yes, I got a standing ovation, but is that really what it's all about? And I sat in this cab on the way to the airport, and I went, you know what, Lynn, you've really got a damn cheek, because you stand up on stage and you tell your whole audience, you've got 500 people in an audience, and you say to them, you've got to create a completely different experience. You've got to create memories. You've got to shift thinking. You've got to change behavior, in order to drive experience. And yet here I am as a speaker doing what speakers have done for 100 years, which is standing on a stage with a PowerPoint presentation, dumping information on my audience. And so I created an interactive business board game, and I'm not going to go into that, okay, because it's long. It's called the Customer Journey Game. But what I realized about business events is that to put your audience from 8 until 10:30, have half an hour break for tea, and then from 10:30 till 12:30 or 1, and then give them a break. To have them sit there for 5 hours and think that they're going to assimilate all of that information, okay, is misleading, understanding, and archaic. If we're not involving people in a physical activity, if we're not immersing them in an experience, we are not going to shift thinking, and we're not going to change behavior. So I think the responsibility has really been shifted back to event managers to say, how are you putting your agenda together? Because, maybe my generation was different, but I can tell you categorically that if I said to my son, won't you just sit here from 9 in the morning until 10:30, all right, and then you can go for a comfort break, but you've got to come back from 11 until 1 and sit there and just listen. There's no way. My son would laugh at me, like the younger generation would. So I think that we have to accept responsibility. If we're going to be charging people for learning experiences, then we have to make them experiences. We have to take the responsibility of how do we shift their thinking, how do we change their behavior by immersing them in an experience, and not data dumping death by PowerPoint on them. And as I can say, I can say that fairly broadly and boldly, because I was paid as an international speaker for many years to fly around the world and do exactly that. And it's actually embarrassing because we're not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Just to comment on that, Steve, if I may, and I'll have to be a bit biased about this. So what myself and my team has created over the last, say, 8 months, was what we done was we actually first saw whether our methodology or our idea of an event is something that would draw the audience and allow the audience to speak. I call it the Aloysius experience. I promise you, it's weird, but that is me. I give things my own name. And
you're brave.
Well, what I decided to do was I full-blown believe in a keynote presenter showcasing their topic in the best possible way. But then we thought of the fact that we wanted people to speak about the specific topic that this keynote was delivering. So what we then embedded into our event, and whoever's listening from other event companies, by all means you may use it, because this is not my own IP. God gave it to me. If you have to use it as well. What we then done was we get panel chairs involved. So the panel chair listens to the keynote presenter attentively. And when the panel starts, which is directly after the keynote, that panel chair discusses the keynote's presentation together with a group of panelists. What then happens in that entire topic? We basically produce an hour of a topic of I like red, for example, and Lynn speaks about why she likes red, and Dave Hobbs is the panel chair, and Dave Hobbs then speaks about what Lynn spoke about, why she likes red, and his panelists then continues that with their own opinion with regards to I like red. And what we've basically done at the Customer Service Symposium is take a critical topic, given it an hour, taken 5 individuals to speak about a topic to ensure that you get different personalities in South Africa, in the world, to try and catch each individual with a different personality because we don't all agree on specific topics. And it allows a huge opportunity for people to sit back and say, oh my goodness, but Nadia was on that panel and she spoke of I like red in that way. That is the way I would like to do things. Then the next person would say, but Steve sat and he actually asked a question about what the individual spoke about in the keynote. Let me go meet with during lunch because I want to foster conversation with him, not only at the event, but after the event as well, because it impacts my business. So what we've done is we've created the Aloysius experience. I call it TAE, whereby we want our audience and our delegates to come to the event to receive a minimum of 12 hours 12 hours education based on the topic. This is the first time you're hearing it. Steve is aware of it. Dave is a little bit aware
you know
of
what
it.
I mean, everybody has their way, believe me, okay? However, my advice to you, take it or leave it, okay? You knew getting me on here, you know what, I don't say all the right things to the right people, but I'm going to be honest with you. Look at your audience and can they assimilate information for an hour? I'm not so sure. If I were you, I would cut it down to 30, 40 minutes and then have your panels. Panels are exceptional. And also in between your keynotes, make them conversations. Don't have speakers as speakers, have them as conversations.
And then I think you misunderstood. The keynote is 30 minutes. The panel is 30 minutes.
Okay,
so
you said now,
basically,
sorry.
the keynote presents and the panel speaks about the keynote, in short.
Okay, cool.
I have 2 points, Steve, if that's okay. And
Yeah,
one
please.
Of them, with what's been happening on this panel. So number one is I always find that, not always, but most of the panels that I watch or take part in are boring. I mean, because, and let's be honest, people come on the panel and they're there to do 2 things. They think they're doing a keynote just with 4 other people watching them online, or they're there to aggressively prospect everyone else is watching, right? So when choosing panel participants and a moderator, there's nothing wrong with a bit of spice. So Lynn, that's why I love the fact that you interrupted me. And I'm not again,
I'm sorry.
Honest, open. No, that's fine. I love the fact that you interrupted Aloysius as well, because it gets the audience to sort of go, okay, these are real humans. They're talking about real experiences. They're not just here to sell me something. They're not just here because they like the sound of their own voice. They're talking. They're disagreeing. I always tell panels that I'm moderating, like, by all means, disagree. Just do it respectfully.
Yes.
Create a bit of spice. Create a bit of intrigue. So that's the one thing when you're choosing your panelists. Boring people create boring panels. Get exciting people. Get them to disagree. I once called out the head of customer experience for a very big betting software in South Africa on a panel, and I said, how dare you call yourself head of customer experience when all you do is take people's money? Talking to that, it was great. We understood the question for what it was. We spoke about it for it was 10 minutes of a 30-minute panel. The audience asked questions. It was fantastic. So don't be afraid to get panelists who are going to maybe cause a bit of a stir. And the second thing that I've learned from when we host our own events is to understand the phrase, drink your own champagne. If you're a company that specializes in CX, you better make sure that your event is the most amazing customer experience. From online registration to in-person registration, sitting down, knowing where to go, everything from start to finish should be, the very thing that you represent, good customer experience. If you don't drink your own champagne, you're starting 10 meters behind the start line.
Yeah, no, that's great, Dave. You preempted the question I was going to ask you, because I know you frequent lots of panels and you keynote and various things like that. And I think we'd all be totally on side is that sometimes you go to an event and you come away from it and you've forgotten it the following week. But the ones you remember are the ones where there's a bit of argy-bargy, there is a little bit of difference of opinions. And I think all too often that gets watered down in the interests of a broader community, whereas some of the takeaways would be, exactly to your point there, is challenge the panelists. As you've paid a lot of money to come to these events, and if there's a panel there of so-called experts, then put them on the spot, ask them. And I'm going to ask Nadia a question now. We're getting towards the end.
Sorry, Steve, before you do, I'd like to add to this as well. So just being part of the Customer Service Symposium events, and there is quite a bit of spice and quite a bit of banter that happens in there. So the panelists are definitely engaging, being part of just the audience sitting there and listening and understanding and having that ability to be able to take in all that information. I think it does definitely have a different set of how they do it.
It is differentiated from other events that I participate in the sense that it's not about the conference organizers trying to get the big sort of software vendors to pay a big fee and then promise them they're going to get footfall. That's such an old model, and I'm sure Lynn would agree with that in terms of how things used to be done. We have to do that thing that we've already discussed, is capture people's attention in 9 or 8 seconds. And how do you do that? Well, you probably do it by being somewhat controversial, putting challenging views out there, and then being able to validate where those views come from. So I'm going to stick with you, Nadia. I want to ask you a question. Is if I was one of your employees and I fancy going to a conference, how do I justify that to you? What do I need to be saying?
The only thing that I actually personally feel that you should be saying to me is I like the learning, number one. The second thing is I'd like to come back and make a change and a difference in our business. So whatever I learn out there, I'm willing to bring it back, and I'm willing to actually show what I've been taught. That's the only thing that I need to get.
Fantastic. And Mohammed Jamal from the floor suggests, perhaps the ability to challenge the person to say, come back and present what you've learned to the rest of the team, and in some instances the rest of the organization, so we can again distill that knowledge out. It's not just you're going to selfishly hold on to it now and keep it to yourself. It's actually being able to come back and then share that with other people as well. Another observation from the floor was perhaps every event should have an experience survey at the end of it, right? And my response to that is a bit controversial, probably. We should know in the event whether people are actually enjoying this and calibrating success. So again, to Lynn's point, though, if people are looking away and they're on Instagram or they're TikToking while somebody's talking, they've zoned out. Well, there's a way of looking at that and looking at the room and looking at the engagement in a room to be able to assess whether are we going in the right direction. And then, of course, course correct if need be. So it's a 2-day event, is to change up the agenda and let people know why you're doing that, so that you get their attention again in that less than 8 or 9 seconds. So I think we're getting towards the end of the time. So what I want to do is just thanks very much the panel. Thanks to the people in the community who've listened to the panel. And of course, this conversation isn't ending here now. This conversation is a rolling thunder. So if you've got thoughts and ideas, please share it with the panelists as well. Reach out, connect with them on LinkedIn, share their thoughts, and then we can put that all back into the mix as well. So with that in mind, Aloysius, I'm just going to hand back to you for a moment so you can do the sort of wrap up and encourage people to sign up for the Customer Service Symposium.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. First and foremost, I would like to thank everybody who's attended, the listeners, the speakers, Lynn, Baker. As always, thank you so much. I love you to bits. You know that. I really hope, I know you're going to Dubai, but if things change, please be at the event so you can see what I'm trying to do rather than hear my words. But I'll send you a video that we're busy with to showcase what we are doing. Steve Towers, you've been around me for 10 years now. Thank you so much for standing by me, helping me change the methodology of what a business-to-business event is about. Dave, Hobbs, I'm looking forward to having you again around the symposium. I've actually been asked to look at having you as the moderator for 2025 for both events. FYI, I'll talk to you about that in Johannesburg. Nadia, you've been a blessing in the biggest way possible. Thank you so much. And the funniest thing to the audience is these are all people I met at an event. It wasn't a set-up thing. It wasn't a meeting. We all met each other at events. I met Nadia at my first event, and she was like, "Wow, I like what you're doing. This is fire!" Like everybody, and that's why she could speak. It's very conversational. It gives you the opportunity to voice your opinion. It gives you the foresight and the fortitude to say, you know what, I want to go use this at my company. And all I'm asking everybody is to give the customer service symposium the opportunity to show you guys what we're about. And in return, we will showcase you guys what you are doing within the customer experience community and as well as in the economy of South Africa, guys. Thank you so much to everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.